Hello and welcome to Scientific American's Best of the Blogs for August. I'm Carin Bondar, and it's been a real summer of love at the Scientific American Blog Network, I'm happy to report. It's not always conventional love, like the romance you might have had during your camping trips. Instead, it might be the love of mosquitoes loving you while you're on those camping trips. But why is it that mosquitoes seem to prefer some people over others? Well, Rob Dunn has some ideas about this, and he shared them this month on the guest blog.
So why are mosquitoes attracted to some people more than other people? It's the kind of thing we all want to know. And the truth is we don't know. And I've offered a new kind of hypothesis called odorant camouflage. And the idea is our attractiveness to mosquitoes is in part an evolutionary story. If we think about the most dangerous animals on Earth, the most dangerous animal is undoubtedly the malaria mosquito. This is an animal that's shaped our evolution in many, many ways. And so what I've hypothesized is that those human populations that have been exposed to the malaria mosquito, that those populations should be less attractive to the mosquito because any individual in those populations that's more attractive to malaria mosquitoes stands a greater risk of dying. And so those versions of genes should be disfavored. But the truth is that the interesting piece of this is that our attractiveness to mosquitoes is mediated by our bacteria. And so what we really expect to see is that those individuals from malaria zones should have bacteria that are less attractive to mosquitoes.
To any visually oriented species, the way a potential partner looks is extremely important. But we have to keep in mind as humans that not all eyes function in the same way. Cheryl Murphy has some insight, pun intended, for us.
Thanks, Carin. So, what do I have to say about bee vision? Well, bees have a spectacular spectrum of vision, much different than you and I. When I look at the beautiful blossoms of a flower, I see all of the bright colors. But a bee sees things quite differently. To a bee, a yellow flower could look white, but it also has hidden markings that you and I don't see on it. There are different swirls and spirals that act as arrows on the petals of flowers that are painted on by nature in UV. When a bee looks at a flower, since it can see UV, it sees these UV markings on the flower, and those markings guides them towards the center and the treasure trove of nectar that's waiting within. So is beauty in the eye of the beeholder, or you and me? Well, if you ask me, I'd like to be a bee and see UV. At least for a day.
Nothing quite says summer like a partner in the midst of projectile vomiting. At least that's the case if you're a metaphiliac, according to Jesse Bering.
Hi, I'm Jesse Bering, and I write the Scientific American Mind blog column, Bering in Mind. And I want to tell you about one of the articles that I've written recently about a particular paraphilia. It's called Metaphilia, which is erotic vomiting. Usually those two words don't go together, but nevertheless there are people apparently that derive their primary sexual satisfaction or can only get gratified erotically by throwing up on somebody else or feeling nauseated or somebody vomiting on them. I talk about in this column, I talk about a particular series of case studies by the psychiatrist Robert Stoller in 1982. These all involved women, interestingly enough. And they discuss, what they think is the first cause or the origins of their peculiar sexual deviance, which is, again, to be aroused by the thought of being nauseated.
That's one I hadn't heard of before. As you can see, it has been a real summer of love here at Scientific American, whether that love means the love of a mosquito or the love of watching your partner projectile vomit. Science is everywhere, people. I wonder what we'll have on tap for the fall. See you again in September.